Hello and welcome back. G-Man here. In my previous video I gave a review of the Roland SH-01A. In this video I want to go more in depth on the features and how to get the most out of it. So let's just jump right in. If you have a keyboard controller, you will want to go ahead and plug a MIDI cord into the MIDI out. And then on their SH-01A, plug the other side into the MIDI input. This will allow the keyboard to control the synth. Okay, say you boot this thing up and you don't have any MIDI plugged in and you don't have any data coming in on your USB, and you also don't have this set inside the keyboard dock. Then when you press this ribbon controller, it will make a sound. Say you picked up your synth as an open box item at the music store. You want to make sure all the factory settings are the way they were, including the patches and presets. This will overwrite the patches and presets, so don't do this unless you're really 100% sure this is something you want to do. Hold down number 2 and turn on the power. Then it's going to prompt you. It's going to do factory reset, and if this is something you want to do, press menu and wait for it to finish. Now this is not something I want to do. I've got some patterns saved in there, so I'm not going to do it. But if you want to exit out and not perform it, you change your mind, just turn the power off and it will be fine. The LFO sets a cyclic change to modulate anything that says mod. So we can change the rate and then press a note, and then something with a mod, we can apply modulation. In this case, we're applying modulation to pitch. Down here, you can use these different waveforms to achieve this. The VCO is what determines the character of the sound and the pitch of the sound as well. So range is where we set the octave. We've already seen what mod does. Pulse width, this knob applies to this waveform. So if we have this waveform selected, we can change the pulse width. If we have this switch set to LFO, we know this is, we know what this is already. We can also have it set to manual, which means the pulse width will stay wherever this lever is set. Or we have envelope. We can use the envelope to control the amount of the width of the pulse. We'll get on to the envelope here soon. We also have a sawtooth. And then we have a sub-oscillator. It's controlled by this switch here. It can be 1 octave down, 2 octaves down, or 2 octaves down in a more of a pulse waveform. Start adding these together, you can come up with some really interesting timbres. And then lastly, noise. If we go into the menu, we can select between 2 different noise waveforms. So I press menu, and then number 4 is the system settings, and the first one that comes up is the noise. So if that's the one we want, you can select other stuff. I'll get to that later. But if you want to change the noise, just hit number 1. When we see this is the original one, and then we can choose a variant. Number 1. Well, when they tell me that it's variant number 1, that probably means in future updates they will be adding more waveforms in here. That would be pretty cool. So I like the variant myself, so I'm going to keep it. So just hit menu to get back out of that. The filter is going to determine the brightness of the signal. You can also use the envelope to control how much of the brightness. Resonance will emphasize the frequencies around the cutoff point. It tends to become nasal and sometimes shrill. Mod, you know this. Anything that says mod is going to be controlled by the LFO. And the keyboard, as you go up the keyboard, the brightness will go up. You set this back down, it will be flat across the whole keyboard. The frequency of the cutoff will be the same. VCA controls the loudness of the sound. You can use the envelope to determine this. Or you can use gate, which is just on-off. No matter what you do to the envelope. The envelope is what shapes the sound over time. So if we set this back to envelope, attack is the start of the sound. Decay is the transition between the highest point of the attack and the sustain. So we can set sustain low and decay low. Decay dies away quickly. If we set it higher, it dies away slowly. But it will go to the sustain point, so maybe we want it to be half as loud whenever decay is done. And it will remain at that loudness point until you let off the key. Then release is after you let off the key. So that's pretty easy. This here determines how the key triggering is going to affect the envelope. So with gate and trigger both at the same time, you play additional notes while holding down keys. It will always start the envelope again. But if you set it to gate, this is low note priority. That means if you hold down a note and play higher notes, it's not going to do anything. But if you press lower notes, it will re-trigger the envelope. So LFO uses the LFO to trigger the envelope. So if I increase the LFO rate, it will increase the amount of times that it triggers the envelope. This is the bender. Using this slider, you can change the amount of pitch. Or you can change the amount of filter. This is the mod ribbon. It can be used to change the amount of LFO that is going towards pitch. And its amount is set with this little lever here. Portamento is set with this switch and this knob. So if you turn it on, you can set the amount of portamento. When it's on, it doesn't matter if you've got a key held down or not. But if you go to auto, you have to have two keys held down at the same time. Use the transpose lever to set the octave up or down. You also have a tune knob over here. It can go up and down one octave. You would use this knob, say, to be in tune with the rest of your band in case your guitarist is a little bit flat or sharp. The CV and gate outputs can be used to connect the SH-01A to other gear and even Eurorack modular units to have the internal sequencer or arpeggio control those other devices. CV is for your pitch and gate is for your note on-off. You also have this external clock input, which, as you have seen from my review demo, I use this jack to control the tempo of the internal arpeggio sequencer from an outboard piece of gear that outputs regular pulse clock timings. That's a lot. Okay, it's time to save a patch, so let's go to Menu and number 1. And this is where I'm going to save my tones. So if we change the value, that changes the bank. Alright, so we have 8 banks, and then once I choose a bank that I like, I want to press and hold the patch number from 1 to 8. So let's choose patch 1, hold it, and then it blinks. When it blinks, that means it's got it. So I can go in here and change a lot of stuff. Alright, now I want to recall the patch. While I'm on that page of the menu, I can recall that patch instantly. What if I wanted it to go back to how the front panel is set up? I want to hear the sound that was getting again. So while I'm here in the menu, I can just actually go to menu from the beginning and then press 8. And this is manual. That means it will set up the sound according to how everything on the front panel is set up. Now we got that weird siren sound back again. Say I want to reload the patch. Go to menu, 1, and then short press. And now I'm listening to the patch that I saved once again. The sequencer is just that. It records and remembers a sequence of notes and it plays them back in order over and over again. You just press play and it's remembering how to do it. If you want to change the scale, right now it's set on 16th notes. Press and hold one of these 3 buttons and turn the volume. You can go right down to quarter notes. You can go to 32, 16th triplets. I'm going to set it back to 16th notes. Now the way to record something is to just press the load button, start playing notes, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if you want an 8th note in there, you have to press and hold legato and then enter the note twice. You can also do dotted 8th notes, so you can do press and hold, and while you do 3 of them together. Let's see what that sounds like. You can transpose the sequence by pressing the key and then playing a key on your keyboard. It can go an octave above middle C or an octave below middle C. It will remember the interval. In my review video, I couldn't find the shuffle setting. It turns out there is a shuffle setting on this. Right now I have the arpeggio set to up. Let me go ahead and hit some notes and hold that. The way to do shuffle is to hold the load button on the sequencer and then turn the tempo knob. Once you have a sequence that you like and you want to save, press menu and 2. Now this pattern, you can still change the bank 1 to 8, and you can save it any number of 1 to 8 positions. I'm going to save mine to number 6. Press and hold, flashes, it remembers. This is the cool thing, you can be playing back and then choose another pattern and it will jump to that pattern. You can do this live. That one was kind of long. Your arpeggio can go up and down, or just down. If you press the hold button, it will hold that. You can also transpose while this is held by pressing the key transpose, and any note above or below middle C, it will transpose that amount. You can change the octave of the arpeggio. Just hold the button that you're using, whether it's up, down, or down, and then you can use this pitch ribbon to set for 2 octaves or back down to 1 octave. You can do that for either of these. Let's change the assignment mode. In the menu, and in number 3, at default it's a mono, because the original was a mono synth. You also have Unison. You have polyphonic behavior. If we do some sustain and release, you can hear it. And then you have a chord mode, where one note is going to play the 4 notes all together as a chord. These 4 buttons here represents the notes of the chords, so you can turn individual notes of the chord on and off. I guess you always have to have the root, so it's not going to let you turn the root note off. The way to program the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th notes of the chord is to press and hold the voice for that note, and then it will give you the interval from the root note. So let's do this, and then let's do that, and then let's do that. Then we got a new chord. And yet, do it again. As promised, we can go through some of the other menu settings, especially for the system. We already covered noise, so let's look at some of the other ones. LFO, let's do this one. The original LFO could only go so fast. And that's as fast as it could go, but if we change it, oops, let's stay there, and go to advanced LFO, that means that it can, that the LFO is capable of going into audio rates. There's a lot of fun to be had there. Let's use the LFO on the VCO instead. And because the LFO is now going into audio rates, that means we are doing FM, proper FM, frequency modulation, just like a DX7 or something like that. So we press this to get back out. We're still in the system menu. The next one, this is the tuning for the whole unit. And it's a fine tuning. So back out. We're still in the system menu. The MIDI channel, you want the MIDI channel of your devices to match so that they can talk to each other. The default on this one is 1. So, and my controller is set to channel 1, so there's no problems there, but say channel 1 in your setup is used already, you may want to change it to something else, channel 5, and so it will be able to talk through MIDI to your other device. Sync is how the tempo of your SH-01A will behave. Automatic means if you plug something in the MIDI input, the other device is sending a MIDI clock. This will become the slave. It will obey whatever the MIDI clock is coming in. But if you change that to internal, no matter what MIDI is coming in, even if there's a clock going in, it will not obey that MIDI timing signal. It will just obey its own internal signal. And LFO, as you know, will synchronize everything to the LFO. The next is key velocity. When you are sending notes out of this from the sequencer or arpeggio to the MIDI out to another MIDI instrument, you get to choose the strength of that MIDI note. You have choices just on 64, that would be a middle velocity strength, and 127 is full strength, full velocity. Okay, CC output mode. Say you want to connect two of these units together, and when you change the patch on one, you want the patch to update on the other one too. This is where you can tell it you want to go ahead and send the patch change information out to the second unit that's going to be turned on, and that unit may probably have this setting turned off, but the unit that is going to be changing the patch, you will have the CC output mode set to on, so that it will be able to update the patch information on the other one that's connected to this unit. Say you're connecting the unit through the CV and gate output to outboard equipment like a Eurorack modular system. Eurorack, the VCOs tend to not, they're analog, so they kind of drifty and they're hard to dial in the tuning for them. That's what these next features are: CV scaling, CV tuning, and CV reference frequency. I would say if you're using these things and needing to do something like that, you're an advanced user already and you don't really need to be told what these things do. You can figure that one out. We're still in the system menu. We have auto off, which you can tell it to turn off. This is only when it's running on batteries. If you plug something in the USB, it will always be turned on from the power of the USB. You can choose battery auto off mode to be 30 seconds, 30 minutes I mean, or off. That's all you get. This is your LED demo. If you leave the unit turned on and walk away, after 3 minutes it's going to start doing the light pattern, or you can choose 10 minutes or 1 minute even, or you can turn the damn thing off if that kind of stuff annoys you. So I'll leave mine turned on at 3. Ribbon controller note scale governs the scaling of this. By default it's set on the chromatic scale, A, B, C, D, and sharps and flats and all that, but you can choose different scales here. Kind of bluesy. Diminished stuff. There's all kinds of scales here for changing what this little ribbon controller does whenever no MIDI, no USB data is plugged into the thing. And lastly, C2 modulation, hold, behavior. If you go in here, it's set to off, so whenever you are playing notes, when you take your finger off, it goes back to 0. But here you can change it to be on and holds wherever you leave it. That's a highly annoying sound. Sorry about that. Anyway, and that's the only feature you have there. Let's back up some files to the computer. Plug in your USB cord to your computer, hold down the menu button, and power on the unit. it will show blank in the display, and as the driver is being loaded to your computer, it will show you a progress bar here with these LEDs. When it's done, it's going to show you the SH-01A project folder. So once you go here, you will see two folders, Backup and Restore. Backup is where you want to copy these folders out onto your system somewhere. And then your patches and your patterns will be backed up safely to your computer. Be sure to go ahead and eject your device. Save to remove hardware, then you can power down your unit. Unplug the MIDI USB cord. The other folder is Restore. The Restore folder is the folder in which you want to bring your backed up patches to be reloaded to your SH-01A. Once you have copied those files back into your Restore folder, then you will want to press the menu button once again. Now it's going to be loading those patches and patterns back into your SH-01A. While it does that, it makes a neat little light pattern. When it's done, it will tell you it's done. Go ahead and power down. And the next time you power on your unit, your patches and patterns will be there. I think in my next video I will go ahead and wait and do some more tips and tricks for that one. That this video is just too long to include that right now. So thank you for watching. I hope this was meaningful and useful to you in getting started and using this wonderful little synthesizer. Thanks again. Appreciate it.